trillion. Point is, we're only going to deal with the mortgages right now. So I said to the bank, I says, well, the U.S. Attorney says we can't get past, we've been in court 3.5 years now and we can't move forward. They want more and more and more information. I says, all right, would you like me to settle this? The guy says, no one's been able to settle it. What are we going to do? I says, I'll fix it. So I made a deal with Chase, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, and Citibank. Brought all the boys in. Sat down and said, hey, you know, guys, you wrote this. I syntexed it. I have a signed confession in my hand. He says, well, we didn't sign it. There's no signature under. I says, yeah, but you stood up in court and you held it up and said, I want your house. When you did that, you confessed. And I've got all of your confessions. Because, after all, I have a lawsuit that says here you want their house for not paying the bill. So therefore, you held this up and confessed to it. Now I have a signature signed in front of a judge. And now you're liable. We can't pay that. You'll bankrupt all the courts. All the banks will go bankrupt. Not true. Okay, in this hand here, you've got a $25 million check. Now, you're going to confess that you wrote this. You're going to pay $25 million to the Justice Department. The Justice Department is going to get $17.5 million of the penalty, and the whistleblower is going to get $7.5 million for every one of these confessions. Then the whistleblower is going to sign a contract. He's going to get $500,000 in cash. Well, that'll be negotiated anywhere from $500,000 to, say, $2.5 million, depending on what you need, how big your family is, what your liabilities are. That's negotiable. But the initial thing was $500,000. Okay. Now we've got $7 million left over. And you have to buy a $7 million CD at the bank that just screwed you, who paid a $25 million judgment to the government. What happens when you buy the $7 million CD? They get to fraction bank it at 10-1, making $70 million and selling it to MasterCard at 18% interest. And in 9 months, the $25 million is all paid back in interest to MasterCard. The bank goes, we're going to make excuse my French, a shit house of money. And the bank, 10 days later, walked into Kamala Harris's office and said, we got a check here for $26 billion. We'd like to settle this lawsuit. And all the homeowners get paid. March 6, 2012. 10 days after I met with the banks in Oceanside, California. Now that they had a remedy, the banks, Kamala Harris got $19 billion. The United States government immediately took $7 billion, stuck it into the Treasury in the state of California. Kamala Harris then had to hire a staff of individuals, screen out the applications, get all the forms worked, the paperwork done. I have those with me, by the way, for those that need the forms. That are involved with lawsuits with me right now. And the bank is waiting for their redeposit of the $70 million for every $25 million they paid out on. And this is I have all 50 federal attorney generals and 1,000 staff members, which are all assistant attorney generals, working with me on this. Now, they are hiring 3,000 more attorneys to work with the U.S. Attorney's Office to process 22 million foreclosures in the United States. When you divide 22 million by 4,000 attorneys, that's going to take a while, especially with all the paperwork involved. It's going to result in an $8 trillion a year windfall for a government that functions on $2 trillion a year and only collects $500 billion a year in revenue from the IRS, from taxes. So this is a 16-1 payback with my technology. Who am I? I am the cash cow of the United States Treasury. Why do they leave me alone? Why do they let me do what I do? because the United States government would not exist after 1997 if it wasn't for me. I paid off the last national debt in 16 months. They were $8 trillion in debt. They not only paid it back, but on November 2nd, 1999, we had $6 trillion surplus in the United States Treasury, entering the third international bankruptcy. And so now, as of last week, we were $17 trillion in debt. With this technology, it's affecting everything. And every single lawsuit, yesterday, Bank of America wrote a check for $2.46 billion for false and misleading information on the wording for the contract for the Bank of America Employees Pension Fund. Biggest single settlement in the Bank of America in the United States pension history. But that is trivia compared to the 25 or the 26 billion that was written in California to settle the cases, and the 74 billion that has currently been paid out to date on the $400 billion lawsuit, which is at the New York Securities and Exchange Commission for false and misleading information to sell bad mortgages to the Securities and Exchange with a second-grade reading level. Henceforth, this document. But under the Clayton Act, they're going for 4 times damages of $1.6 trillion against the banks. This is just the first 1% of the 22 million cases that are out there. There's a 3% bottleneck in the United States court system. It will take 30 years to go through the 22 million foreclosures. That's why they've hired it. They want to bring this down to 10 years instead of 30 years. Question?
I'm just curious on the, you mentioned $7 million going to the CD.
You get the interest off it on a yearly basis besides your 5. Just like you win the lottery, you get the interest from the lottery for 20 years. The state keeps the initial chunk of money that you just won, $300 million, and you get the interest off it. It's more money than you can spend within reason against paying for all your toys that you would fantasize for any individual. And it keeps, really isn't any money around out there. Everything's got to be working. Interest is a working condition of money. So every time they have a problem, they come to me saying, here's the information, sort it out. And it takes me just a couple seconds because I've been doing this since 1997 when I issued new money in the United States.
So does that go on indefinitely, or is there a time frame that will stop?
There will always be a condition of foreclosure. There will always be people in bad luck. There will always be, the new contracts, however, have to be written in a new parsé syntax grammar.
I'm referring to the 7 million CD that I get personally.
No, that'll be just a 10-year contract.
10 year. Okay.
That you'll have a one-time payout at the end of 10 years. That'll give them a time to, they may bill out MasterCard at, I think it's currently is 14.6%, giving you a 7% commission off of that. 7 times 7 is 49, so that's $500,000 a year for 10 years on top of that, and then a windfall of 7 at the end, which would be reasonable. The bank makes $70 million off the top of that at a 10-to-1 fraction, where they're only paying you paying you the face value of 7, but actually collecting on 63 million all the interest. See?
Give me time to gear up and get used to the cash flow before I get
Yeah, I'm sure McDonald's will appreciate you. Yes.
But eventually, with that all being said, then these banks, they're not going to fight.
Right. In other words, the banks will say, "Oh, you finally caught me. Okay, yeah, I confess. No prison, and we're going to go ahead and negotiate this plan. You guys win. The federal government gets $17.5 million. They win. The IRS, now, everyone, you're entitled to your minimum wage, $8 an hour. You work 8,700 hours a year on your property to guard the home and the farm. At minimum wage, that's $87,400 a year for the husband and the wife. Anybody on title. Times the amount of years you've owned the property. And under the Clayton Act, it's 4 times that. Then your down payment on the property, if you refinanced, the value of the house you put up for the refinance is the down payment times 4.